so many people who are interested to upgrade their knowledge or wanted to know more, so I thought I should share my experience in renovation or finishing basement with you. So first thing first, we're gonna start with framing the basement. And what is important in finishing the basement, or let's say framing, that we have to understand the concept, we have to understand the building size, which is the moisture protection. And basically whenever I draw a basement plan, I try to think about the end of the project, how it is going to look like. So the beauty is one thing, but the main important thing is how to do it right. I'll share my experiences. There might be some stuff that will be useful for you. Now that we're planning to put our framing, in some basements you need to do the framing and then you got to put the insulation and vapor barrier on top. But luckily in this basement, the builder has put the insulation and the vapor barrier on top, so we're gonna build our frame against the insulation. And we have to consider that how to protect this bottom part, because as you can see the insulation finishes here and the vapor barrier finishes here, so we have a moisture gap here. Moisture can travel if we just build our framing on top of the concrete subfloor, so moisture can travel from these gaps or the concrete subfloor itself. So what we have to do, basically, we have to put a piece of vapor barrier and make it tight with this vapor barrier. And then once our framing is done, before drywall, we got to wrap up the vapor barrier behind the drywall so moisture doesn't travel to our framing. So here we have the vapor barrier. Just one thing, that don't take it wrong with plastic. It's not a normal plastic. It helps with moisture control. Basically when you put the insulation, always you gotta put vapor barrier on top, so it helps with the moisture and heat and cold loss. It comes in different sizes. As you can see, it is 2 layers. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it in accurate size that I need for my framing on top of the subfloor. So now we have to find out that where our framing is gonna go. We're gonna measure it, and basically I'm using a digital laser for that. I will show you guys how to do that for those people who don't know much about it. So I'm gonna turn it on, and so basically I have to find out exactly where it's gonna go. As you can see on that corner of the wall, that if the back side of my framing almost touching the insulation, so we're good. Now this one is gonna be my draw line, so I'm gonna put a chalk line on it and put my vapor barrier on top of the subfloor, and then build my framing on top of that. Now I'm gonna use the chalk line to draw the line, because I wanted to see the line when I put my vapor barrier from underneath, right? So we got to see where the lines are, that we can build up our frame on top of that. I will need another help just to use the chalk line. So basically you can see that I have placed my chalk line exactly on top of the laser line that I have put. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna snap it. So I have a light blue line underneath. When I turn off my digital laser, you're gonna see the line. I'm gonna turn off the laser. Now you see that I have put my chalk line here. So basically this is going to be the front of the bottom plate stud that I'm going to lay it on the subfloor. But before that, I'm going to put my vapor barrier. So basically the line will appear from underneath when I look from over. So I have cut the vapor barrier to the size that I need with the sharp cutter. As you can see, this is the width that I need, and the length is the same from the roll. We're gonna lay it down for you guys. Lay down the framing. Do you remember that we put the digital laser, we had a nice green line, and then we used the chalk line? So this is the line that I was talking to you. Now what we are gonna do, basically you can see an exposed concrete here and the exposed subfloor. So I have put my vapor barrier down, and then I'm gonna just use tuck tape to seal this joint, that the moisture cannot travel from this gap to my framing. I'm gonna put some temporary tape just to hold it up, and then I'm gonna tape all the joints from start to end. So now we're gonna seal the joint. As you can see here, I have put some temporary tape. Now I'm gonna seal this permanently, so it will help to hold the vapor barrier and also to seal it again. So now I'm putting the bottom plate on my chalk line as I draw it. So it is very important to secure it, and it got to be on accurate measurement so you don't have any trouble later on. It's a 8-feet piece of stud, and it's a 2x3. I have used on other sides of the wall 2x4s, but here I had an agreement with the client that on all exterior walls we can use 2x3. So now I have laid my bottom plate exactly on the line. As you can see, the question is how we are gonna secure this. As you can see, it's bouncing and you don't want your frame to be loose, so we have to use concrete nail. I got a shotgun that you can find it from any construction store. I will shot a nail to secure this framing to the subfloor, and later on, once I finish the framing, so I can wrap my vapor barrier, as you can see, so the bottom of your frame is protected and the moisture cannot travel anymore. Here is the laser point that we are going to mark for our top plate. So this is one side, and I'm going to mark the other side. Basically, I'm gonna use a shotgun to secure my bottom plate to the subfloor. It takes a bullet, and then I use 3-inch nail. You can put it from here. I gotta put back the bullet. Now I'm gonna close it, and so I don't want to put at the very edge because it's going to crack the bottom plate, and also I got to put in stud, so I don't want any extra height to disturb my first stud. As you can see, now the bottom plate is secured to the concrete floor. So you can put every 2 or 3 feet one nail. So now, as my bottom plate is secured, I'm gonna start putting the top plate on the ceiling, and then we can put our studs in between. For framing, I'm going to use this gun. So I have a 3-inch framing nail. I'm going to put it from here. You can use framing screws as well, but this makes my job faster. It's closed. So guys, I'm going to put the top plate. Now it's accurately on the line, as you can see the laser line as well on the edge of the top plate. So normally the size of a stud in a drywall is 8 feet. We want to make sure that we're gonna put our studs the way that later on we don't have much of a drywall waste, and it'll make our work easy as well. As you can see, the total length of this stud is so in order to divide our stud, we can go 12 inches on center, which is 1 feet, or 16 inches on center, or 24 inches on center. I wanted to go in between just to have a stronger wall. We're gonna divide this starting here, 15 inches on center. I'm gonna put my first mark here, as you can see, and then the second mark again, 16 inches on center. If I keep going like that to the very end, that is going to give me exactly 8 feet, and that will fit the drywall as well. When you're marking on 16 inches on center and you're putting your stud on top of that, so you make sure that you put a mark at the front as well. So basically we're going to start it from here. We don't want to put it like this because, as I said, this is going to be 8 feet. You don't want your drywall to end up here. You want your drywall to exactly end up in the center of the stud. So when you're putting your next bottom plate, right, so that is going to be exactly in center of the two bottom plate, and your drywall finishes here. You can start your next drywall from here. So what I'm going to start it from here. Last stud I'm going to put when I build up my bottom plate. So we're going to start it from here. But what we want to make sure that this is exactly the same height. We don't want to be shy on measurement, and I wanted to make it easier for myself. I'm going to use my laser level. Otherwise I have to put the regular level, and sometimes these studs are not straight. So now I have put my laser level. I'm gonna have a straight stud here. So basically we gotta measure it from the bottom of the top plate to the top of the bottom plate. It is exactly make sure that it is flush with the bottom plate and it's exactly on center. So I'm gonna put the nail on both sides of the stud, not at the front, because that might create a bump for drywalling later on. So far we have finished a section of a framing wall. I'm gonna show you that what we did exactly. As I have explained before, that I have put my studs, each one 16 inches on center, and at the end I wanted to get exactly 8 feet white because the drywall comes in 8 feet, and that's what I prefer to install. So if you divide each stud 16 inches on center, that's exactly what you get, 8 feet. But as you can see, this is finish of my first bottom plate, and this is the start of the second one. It is safely secured on a concrete slab. So the first stud, we're gonna measure it from here and put our first stud in center of this 2 bottom plate, and then we can go along the way 16 inches on center, and maybe at some points you will see that your last stud spacing is shorter than this one. You don't want to go all the way back because you're gonna start your next stud exactly from here, and if we put 1/2 inch drywall here, so we're gonna have another 1/2 inch, and we continue our drywall either from this side or the other side. It will give exactly 8 feet. And let's say as an example where our drywall is going to finish. So our drywall is going to finish exactly here in center. We can screw it, and then we can start our next drywall. So if the measurement is accurate, you don't have to do any drywall cutting or having an extra waste on material and your time. Here we have a little bit of space, and I was discussing with the client what our options are going to be. We're planning to install an electrical decorative fireplace here, and wall mount TV on the top. So basically that will give us enough room that we can have our fireplace flush with the front wall, and then we can just shift it a little back as well. You will see later on that how we're gonna finish this fireplace and TV mounting portion.